Welcome to another episode of Stockport Grammar School Talks Sport. Today's guest is Old Stopfordian, long distance GB athlete, PhD, academic supreme, and in 2019 she stormed to victory at the Florence Marathon with an outstanding time of 2 hours 25 minutes. Welcome to Stockport Grammar School Talks Sport, Jess Piasecki.
Thank you, thanks for having me.
Possibly your school days to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So, as you just said, I'm an old Stockportian, so I went to Stockport Grammar, I think from the age of about 7 or 8, actually.
Oh, wow.
And I first got involved in all sports, like it is there, and everything's so readily available, which is amazing, and I did everything I could all the time. And I primarily sort of focused on hockey in the senior school. That was my main focus. But then when I was 14, so I think in my third year, year 9, I qualified for the English schools through the school cross country. So you obviously did PE. We had cross country lessons, doing laps and laps of the grounds. I used to have a few competitions with the lads in the class. And then went on from there. I qualified for the Stockport schools race, and then I came in like the top 8 there, and that meant I could represent Greater Manchester. So you did Stockport schools, Greater Manchester schools, and then went to the English schools, and I did it, and I didn't really know what it was, and it's quite a big event really now in sort of your developmental years. And one of the other lads on the team who went to Stockport Grammar, Ross, his dad actually said to me after the race, because I was just happy to be there. It was like a night away from mum and dad at the age of 14 was really cool. And his dad said, why don't you come down to Stockport Harriers? So then from there, I persuaded mum and dad just to, add another sport into the mix, another thing they had to take me to on a night. And I dragged them down basically. And from there, I developed in my running. At the time, I was still focused on my hockey, but by the time I was sort of just starting my A-levels, I decided to focus on running rather than hockey, because that was when I first got onto the Great Britain cross-country team. And from there, I just sort of continued to progress in running, really. But it was definitely through school that I then managed to sort of develop to where I am now.
Yeah. No, brilliant. And then obviously also alongside that, you've achieved great success in your academics as well. And how did you balance that?
Yeah, it's always been a driver for me. I think obviously they put a lot of emphasis on effort. So I've always put a lot of effort into my schoolwork as well as my running. And I think, I did all right and everything, but it was really like A-levels. I did A-level biology, and I wanted to go on to university to do human biology, physiology, which is obviously what I do now. And I really sort of dug deep into, I really, really wanted an A in biology for some reason. I was determined to get it, because it was one of the 3 that I'd not struggled with, but not found as easy, I suppose. So I really then delved into the academic side, and I think just being super organised really throughout the whole time period. And even when I was at school, I remember if I had big training on an evening and I knew I wasn't going to be able to get any homework done, I'd be like a cool kid, in the library at lunchtime getting it done. And then that sort of balance and determination sort of carried with me right the way throughout. So throughout university and then going on into sort of my research career, it's always been full on and busy, but that's the way I like it. A lot of my peers in athletics world might be full-time athletes or have been part-time for a while, and I struggle with that concept. I went part-time at work for the first time at the start of 2020. And it's been weird. It's been, obviously coronavirus made it super weird, but it's been weird in terms of do I have to do some work on these days? I find it hard to justify doing nothing in terms of just doing my running, but actually it's probably what I need to do.
And then a little bit about what we're talking about is about high performance and high performance mindset. What does high performance mean to you, Jess?
Yeah, I think it encompasses, it's not just your sporting ability, no matter what sport it is. I think it is everything that goes with it. So like we've just talked about, if you're a youngster, balancing your academics or whatever it is you're doing at the same time is still part of that high performance, because inevitably you want to develop that other optional career as well as your sports, because sport won't last forever. So that's part of your lifestyle, and that all equates to high performance. And then alongside that, you've got, you know, good nutrition, good recovery, and your mindset, like you just said. At the end of the day, you know, even if you're a team sport athlete, it's you who's got to play in whatever position you're playing or whatever you're doing, and you need to be in the best frame of mind to be able to do that. And so if you know that you've done everything you can on the day, then I think that gives you the best opportunity to be in that high performance mindset as you were. And I think coronavirus as well has probably highlighted the importance of a mindset even more so than it previously was. And it's definitely been an area like I've managed to sort of try and focus on a little bit more during this time, because we've got those few hours where we're not driving to and from work, but also it's you know, come to the forefront of everybody's minds that actually I need to look after upstairs, up here, as well as, you know, your legs that often do the work in sport.
And then in terms of like role models and people who've influenced you on your journey, does anyone stand out to you who's had an influence, and why have they had that influence?
Yeah, I think growing up in sport, you know, I think it was the time I was probably about, in my school years, you know, Kelly Holmes was doing really well at the time when I first got into sport, and she, to achieve that sort of the later stages in her career and after all the injuries she had, that was really inspirational. But I actually take, you know, a lot of sort of role model-esque from people that I compete against as well. You know, I think everybody's done so well to come from whatever backgrounds, whatever, you know, academics, however they balanced it. And now I think, especially in athletics, there's so many people that are actually competing at the world's best. And I think that's in itself enough of an inspiration to get yourself, you know, out the door when it's really cold, or keep you going in the gym when you're doing your boring stuff that you need to do, and all that kinds of stuff. And then as well, you know, people at school, like all the PE staff, were really encouraging of everything that I ever did and wanted to do, and likewise with my family. So I would never say there's like one particular person, but I think it's just a combination of all those that I sort of aspire and keeps me pushing, you know, even today.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good answer. Again, what I picked up there was actually you're picking out the best parts of people, and you want to be the best version of you, because you don't want to like copy other people. You want to be Jess, don't you? So
yeah,
really,
exactly.
Really
yeah, you don't ever. I know it's hard to compare yourself so much now with social media and everything like that, but actually, and it's never really that great. It's you've got to, you know, what works for you won't necessarily work for someone else, and you know, you'll learn whatever works for you as you progress throughout sport. And when you get to my age, you sort of know definitely what works. So you have to focus on those bits as well.
Yeah, no, good. And in terms of your career so far professionally, you've had ups and downs, and we all go through them. What's the biggest setback you've had professionally, and what have you done to overcome that?
Yeah, there's been quite a few. You know, I was I suppose a bit late into athletics, and during my early years, everything was great. Everything was going well, and then when I was 18, just before I went to uni, I got quite a bad stress fracture, and then I seemed to get quite a few injuries from there. But I've always achieved along the way, and that's been part of my determination, I suppose. But I think one of the biggest setbacks was after 2015, I'd sort of made some real big jumps in terms of my performance into the senior ranks. I was then competing on Diamond Leagues. I had aspirations for the 2016 Olympics. And I'd set PBs right across the board, and even that had, you know, from 2015, before that, I'd struggled with a few injuries, but that seemed to I seemed to be a bit more consistent, which is inevitably what we want. But then after that, I then had a big injury, and the following years, I think from like 2016, I didn't then really race properly until sort of the spring of 2018, because I seemed to get quite a big injury after big injury. I had a couple of surgeries. I had some bone issues. So they were, and that was sort of the years where I was doing my PhD. You know, I met my now husband, and it was sort of that crossroads where, do I carry on with this or do I not? But I never really put any pressure on myself, and it just sort of let things happen. I went through the injury process and the rehab because I knew I'd still want to run, even if it was for my health and just general enjoyment. But then by the time I sort of got to some kind of fitness, there was always that inkling of like, no, let's go a little bit more. Let's see what I can do still. I'm not done with this. And from there, that's sort of taken me to the position I am in now, which is sort of my time now has cemented me as a pretty decent marathon runner, and hopefully I can continue on into, you know, the late 30s that I'm heading towards. So I think that was probably my biggest setback.
And on the flip side, then you've had lots of accomplishments and hopefully more to come. What accomplishments are you most proud of, and why?
Yeah. I think there's two really. I think in 2012, so this is quite a while ago now, I won the under 23 European cross country. And again, for me, I love cross country, and that's again how I started in the sport. I think not many kids like cross country, but I did. And the European cross is something I was part of it when I was 16, but then I missed several years, and I finally made it back in 2012, and I was in fabulous shape, and I actually won the senior and under 23 trial, but I decided to compete in the under 23s just because I'd been through so much and wanted to just enjoy that time as an under 23, and I won, and I won not with ease, but it felt so good, and the race just went how I wanted it, and it was -9, there was snow everywhere, but I just sort of stuck my head down and got on with it. And actually, I think when you go into a champs like that and you've won and everyone knows you're in good shape, it takes another mindset to actually execute that on the day, and I did. So that was one of my most proudest moments. And then Florence at the end of 2019 was definitely the latest. And I think because even that one came with a bit of stress, accustomed to it as well, because I was originally meant to be doing a marathon in the October, and I just tweaked my calf doing absolutely nothing, but it meant we had to change the plan within like four weeks, and the marathon we were aiming for then became Florence Marathon. When we got to Florence Marathon, the travel itself to get there was a nightmare. And when we got there, they then told me in the middle of the press conference that they hadn't got a number for me, and it was just chaos, like the whole thing. My husband was there, my parents, and they were just like, "What on earth is going on?" So eventually we made it to the start line. Don't know how. And the race itself, I think how I executed that as well was really good. I just went in with no pressure. It wasn't really a fast course, so I didn't expect to run the time that I did. But again, it was just one of them days where everything came together. You know, my training had finally worked, and my body had held up. Like, my stomach was fine, the weather was fine, the pacer was great, and it ended up, you know, with me running a really fast time, and hopefully maybe 2021 if it carries on and happens. So that was the last one to be most proud of, definitely.
No, definitely. And do you think because of all the chaos before the race, did that help take your mind off things? Did that help control the nerves and, I don't know, in a way, benefit?
I think so, possibly, because I was so stressed about, like, they told me I didn't have a number, so then I was trying to get hold of my agent, trying to get hold of, like, Stockwell Harriers. Was it something that had gone wrong there? Was it because I changed my surname at some point, but that was like 3 years before? We just don't know. So then maybe that just took the distraction off the actual race. And I think because, you know, there was not many people I knew there or anything in terms of my competition, there was a load of, you know, really good club runners, blokes that I could run with. I didn't know, but like on the start line, they were there as well. And that made the race sort of a bit more relaxed because there was a group of us all together. And I'm not normally in training. I go off like a rocket and just hold on for dear life and normally die towards the end. And my coach said to me beforehand, he was like, "You cannot do that in your actual race, Jess." Like, he sets me these training sessions and he goes mad when I just like do it totally the opposite way round that I'm meant to. But I actually managed to like hold back that first half, and then I just sort of got competitive and was just so in the zone. It sort of, you know, we got your blinkers on and you can't hear anything, and I didn't know how. I'd given up like trying to work out what time I was on for because I couldn't see the car in front. And yeah, I only found out that I was going to run pretty decent in like the last 20 meters. So yeah, it was just great.
No, cool. And then talk me through what was going through your body, your head, when you realised that time came through, 2 hours, 25 minutes for a marathon.
Yeah.
What was going through your head?
To be honest, like I said, it was like literally the last 20 meters, we turned this corner and I could see the finish line with the number at the top, the time. Yeah. And I didn't really realise until I'd crossed the line, because I was like, nah, that's not right. They've obviously gone wrong. Like, that's wrong. But we turned the corner, and loads of people on the streets and stuff cheering, and I was just like getting to that finish line, because by that point the last 2K was really starting to sting. And I finished and like lay on the floor for a bit and checked my watch, and then I was like, have you seen what time I just ran? And I think, I think then it just started to like sink in. I couldn't find my husband or my family for ages, and then eventually found them. And it wasn't until, perhaps the next few days that it really sunk in as to what I was achieving, because then I kept getting phone calls from everybody, and my agent was calling me like, this opens doors for you, all that kind of stuff. And it was like, wow, this is actually what I've been working for. This is what I wanted. It's actually happening. This is your life.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, all right, okay. So then a couple of weeks later, I went into work. I was like, can I go part-time? So yeah, it just sort of went from there.
Oh, amazing. And then what's the future hold, Jess? What are you going to achieve in the future?
Yeah, well, I think that's everyone's inevitable question at the minute. So at the moment, we are hoping Tokyo is going to go ahead. So everything's geared towards that. There's a qualification race for us marathoners at the end of March. So everything's sort of focused towards that. I've done the time, so I need to come top 2. And then ideally Tokyo, but if not, I would hopefully do a marathon in the autumn. Yeah. And for me, I just want to, become the marathoner that I want to. So keep chipping away at that time, but also competing at the championship events. So like the Commonwealth Games is next year, as well as the World Champs. There'll be European Champs coming up, and as well competing on, the pinnacle marathons like New York Marathon I'd love to do, and Boston, London, all that kind of stuff. If I can just keep doing that for the next few years, then I'll be really happy.
Oh, amazing. And then what about your academics? Obviously, that's a big part of your life as well. Do you want to just tell the listeners a little bit about what you're doing there? Because I think you're doing unbelievable work there.
Yeah, so I sort of from university, I've sort of followed in my research interests. I think I really got into it in a master's degree. And then I did a PhD, and now I work as a lecturer at Nottingham Trent University. As I said, I was, everything's always been full time until last year, and I work 3 days a week, although I think most weeks it is 5 days a week. So within that, I obviously teach the university students, but we research. My particular areas of interest are female physiology. So working with like female athletes, understanding the menstrual cycle, how that impacts performance, and sort of what mechanisms are underlying that influence. And then I also do a lot of research in aging, so how physical activity can affect and help our muscles and our bone health as we get older, and particularly I focus on masters athletes, so people who have been competing like since they were 18 up to 78 years old, and they're really competitive, like world record holders and so on. So that's sort of the main focus of my research, and hopefully I'll carry on and progress through the ranks in my job role as well at the same time, and just keep evolving my research really. No,
really, really exciting. So it sounds really interesting. So no, good stuff, good work. And then we're asking these 2 questions to everybody. What are your 3 non-negotiable behaviours, Jess, that you'd expect from yourself, but anybody else you'd come into contact with?
Oh, okay. That's a tricky one. Well, at the moment, I would be non-negotiable on hygiene. Keep washing your hands. So that's, I suppose, one behaviour. But for myself, I think just determination is definitely one, because I think that applies to a lot of avenues of life. So, you've got to be determined, as in doing the training when you don't particularly want to, when you need to, doing the rehab, doing the boring stuff, eating right, sleeping right. And also, you know, for me, getting my work done and applying myself to 100% there. And then help, you know, going through any injuries at the time or whatever it is, that's always a key aim. But as well, at the same time, you know, I think you've got to bring it back to, and even people you're working with in work and in sport, is enjoyment. You've got to be able to enjoy it, because, you know, without that, then I don't really see much point to it, if you know what I mean. To be quite blunt, you know, I've got to enjoy my work, that then helps me be happy for training, and vice versa. I have to enjoy, you know, most aspects of my training to keep doing it. And because it's such a big part of life, I think you really just it's got to be enjoyable. And, you know, I'm not saying enjoy, you're going to be running in the, you know, slushy snow and sleet or whatever with a massive smile on your face all the time. But there's got to be some kind of enjoyment to drive you to go out there and do it. And I think once that's lost for me, I think that'll be a time where I think, right, okay, it's time to close that chapter. But at the moment, I'm still enjoying it, so definitely.
No, I think that's really important. And a lot of people we spoke to on this series is that love for what they do and that passion for what they do, because it's a massive driving force that if you love to do something, then your mental well-being will be so much better than on top of that.
Exactly, yeah.
No, cool. And then, Jess, if you were to go back to Stockport Grammar School then at 12 in the senior school, what advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know now?
You know what, I think about this a couple of times. I would say chill out.
Yeah.
Like, because I think I was probably quite a serious kid, you know, and I was always wanted really good grades and really good effort grades, and have to get my homework done and never be rebellious and things. But for me, I would just be like, chill out. Like, you've got so many years ahead of you, you know, before you know it, you'll be paying mortgages and bills and all that. And so that's what I'd say. I'll just chill out, enjoy it. I think, you know, I got involved in so many opportunities. I think I really relished in that, particularly from sport. But I definitely just say, just chill out and be able to sort of take a step back a little bit and absorb everything. You know, you just, life just passes you by really when you're that age. But if you can actually appreciate all that you've got and all that you're able to do, I think you'll probably like relax a little bit.
Yeah, no, great advice. And everyone says it's so cheesy, but the school days are the best days of your life, aren't they? And you don't realise that until you leave.
Definitely. I remember the years, particularly at Stockport Grammar, I think the best ones were like GCSE years for us, and especially our year group. We all just seemed to gel really well at that time. And then, you know, A-levels, it becomes a bit more serious, and beforehand you sort of get into grips with everything, whereas that time you sort of really cemented, and I've got good relationships with a lot of people in school, so yeah.